Kia ora everyone, Brad Flutie here from Horace Media. Today we're here with Craig, ex-operator at Marsden Point Oil Refinery, in collaboration with Week's End News, Kiwi and Sue. We're going to give a special mention to other important allies in the fight for liberty, Counterspin Media, Fight for Sovereignty, Voices for Freedom, the original Convoy 2022, not the a-holes who just go after other movements, commandeer them and drive them into the gutter. Some of them are now squatting at some camp 40 kilometres away, but we won't worry about spilt oil, will we, Craig? So we're here with Craig. We're just double checking. You were a senior operator at the Marsden Point Oil Refinery, were you not?
I was.
Yeah. How long were you there for?
This term was just 6 years, and before that was nearly 15.
Wow.
I did a little stint in Australia.
So you've been 21 years working at oil refineries. So
Yes.
You're pretty passionate about oil refineries?
I love the industry.
Yeah.
Oil and gas is an awesome industry.
Why is that?
It's one of those industries that can take you all over the world. We haven't found a better way of transporting energy, and it's so versatile. There's nothing out there yet. Maybe sometime there may be, but at the moment there isn't. It's easy to transport, it's relatively safe, everyone uses it, and you don't actually understand how farly integrated it is into our lives.
Yeah. How much waste byproducts are there from crude oil?
From like a barrel of crude?
Yeah.
Virtually none.
Literally none. So you use every single byproduct?
Except the barrel.
Except the barrel.
We don't use a barrel.
But barrels are reusable, are they not?
No, it's just a figure of volume.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive. So you can make the case that oil now, with the advancement of technology, has become regenerative. Regenerative meaning that you can use all of the byproducts and recycle everything. You
do use it all. The gas off the top, you run through and use it to fire your furnaces, and the residue out the bottom turns into your roads, turns into fuel, turns into the lighter fractions of that are used for bunker fuel, which is your boat, used for your ships fuel. It's pretty awesome. All the sulfur that we pull out, fertilizer, the CO2, which is a byproduct from some of the processes, gets used in all sorts of industries. It's used for your food. We use it in nurseries for growing plants. And there's massive enclosed growing, Polyhouses, there you go. That's the word, polyhouses.
Yeah, I'm actually a horticulturalist. We can actually get the CO2 up there into 1,500 parts per million, which is, I think that's 1,100 parts per million more than what we have in the atmosphere right now, and that can get our yields up to about 30% increase in our yields.
Yeah, and that's just making the plant work hard, which is its job.
But the climate activists that argue that we're putting too much CO2 in the atmosphere now, and that we need to reduce our carbon emissions. What would you say to that?
Well, we've got no other way of moving things around at the moment, until they can come up with a better way of doing things, or find a better way of converting that CO2 that comes out of our exhausts, out of our lungs, and out of every other orifice that we make. We're pretty well screwed.
Yeah. You're pretty
we can't push trucks around.
You think fart taxes are pretty sensible?
No, I don't.
Have you heard of carbon engineering technology that sucks carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and turns it back into jet fuel?
If you can get the carbon and you can whack a few hydrogen atoms on it and get enough chains, then you can do that with anything. You could probably use some of the soot out of the fire to do the same thing. Because
it's just a hydrocarbon at the end of the day.
It is.
So it's pretty sad to see the refinery turned into a grifting middleman for refined fuel, or imported refined fuel rather, without the safety net of a refinery for dirty imported fuel. Yeah?
Yeah, it's the other refineries will be making quality fuels, I imagine, but I'm unsure as to how good they are by the time they've been set on a boat and dragged over here. Again, I don't work there anymore, so I have no information on the qualities of the fuels that are coming, but if they're releasing them. The New Zealand has a spec, it has to meet those specs. There is funky ways of achieving those specs, which other refineries probably are using. Our refinery, I think, was pretty much a Rolls Royce as far as quality, especially for the petrol components. You can use lesser products and chemically change them, isomerize straight chains into branched. Alkylates, again, you're starting to deal with some ugly chemicals with those. There are you're dealing with sulfuric acids and hydrofluoric acids, which are very, very dangerous, but they're part of an alkylation plant. But you get to use more than what we did of those components. You can turn them into higher octanes than what we used. We didn't use those.
There's an old economic saying that and I think Elon Musk actually said this, funnily enough. He said, if you don't make things, you can't have things. And I add on to that if you can't have things if you don't make things because of the exponential rise in inflation, because you are dependent on people that do make things. And if you're making things, then the price of things will go down because you have an abundance of things. But if you're not making things, then the price of things are going to go up because you're dependent on everybody else.
Well, you're not adding any value to the end product, are you? If you start with the raw product and you can turn that into the end product, well, then you've added that value to it, which you end up keeping on shore.
Yeah.
And the byproduct of that is all those jobs you've just created.
Speaking of value products, can you tell me about the quality of the jet fuel that came out of Marsden Point? I heard that the parts per million on that jet fuel was way above the international standard.
Way below.
Way below. Sorry.
Way below the international standard. We used to make ours to 300 parts per million for the pipeline. So we with a very low.
What's the international standard?
2,000 parts per million.
So that's
nearly seven times
quite.
less.
Whoa. So that'll make your motorbike go gangbusters.
No, I just won't stink. If you could run a motorbike on kerosene, yeah.
Jeez, that's pretty high quality stuff. They used to send that down the pipeline to Woody.
Yeah, that was a spec for the pipeline.
Far out. Do you reckon we'll be getting anywhere near that with imported jet fuel now?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Could you?
I would imagine that if they're going to do it, it would be a special batch for New Zealand. If the spec is 200 parts per million and ours is 300, they'd have to make ours. They'd have to refine it. They'd have to run it through the desulfurizer a little bit harder to make ours. And we would have to pay for that, wouldn't we?
How would we know that was up to that spec?
Because again, like every fuel that comes into this country, it gets tested. It has to meet a certain standard.
Right. Yeah. And that's done at Marsden?
It's done at the import port where it comes off. Where they take it off, they will be testing it before it's offloaded. And that's just standard. Yeah. And if it doesn't meet those specs, then I guess they'd turn the boat around and get another one or argue. So that's outside of my realm, so I've had no interest in a tank farm. So
we've probably reduced the types of jobs and the amount of jobs available in this fuel processing.
There are the operators. There was about 120 of us, and most of us are redundant. If not all.
How many guys have lost their jobs?
About 120.
Is that all
operations
that will lose their jobs?
No, there was a lot more that lost them from the refinery itself, out of offices.
How many operators are there to office staff?
Initially, there was a lot more operators than office staff, but it's certainly gone the other way over the last 10 years.
How far out of the way?
Oh, probably 4 to 1.
4 to 1?
Yeah.
What are they doing?
I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, the plant hasn't got 4 times bigger. The operator numbers have dropped.
There are 4 to 1 office workers to people that actually do the operation of the plant.
Yeah.
And you don't know what they do?
No. When I first started working there, I knew everyone that walked through the gate.
And people were wondering why this place isn't turning a profit, or claiming that it's not turning a profit.
I almost feel like it's the one-man workshop that's got 9 office staff, and I wonder why they can't make any money. That's outside looking at it.
It's not funny though, is it?
No, it isn't funny, but it's
Sounds like government.
It's kind of odd. Well, yeah, it does sound like government, doesn't it?
Jeez. Well, we heard that one ex-contractor or employee is living in this car out by Porhi Island. We should ask him to join us at the digging at Marsden.
Should.
Yeah, we've got plenty of food down there, haven't we?
Yeah.
If you guys don't know, the digging at Marsden has been outside the refinery contesting the loss of our refining capabilities for many of the reasons that are going to be explained in this interview. We've been down there now since 73 days now, 73 days, and by the end of tonight, 73 nights. And unfortunately, I don't think we're just not getting the message out there. People just aren't realising that this is the thing that's one of the reasons why the fuel prices are being driven through the roof.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not enough refining capacity in the world because everyone's been madly shutting down refineries.
Yeah, this isn't the only refinery that's being shut down, is it?
No, there's been shut down all over the world. Australia shut some down. Thankfully, they kept a couple running and didn't go down this path. At least they've got a little bit of resilience. We're pretty much at the mercy of some other country now.
Are we running out of crude, Craig?
I wouldn't think so. We can't be running out of crude because they're asking people to actually produce more, but there's no point. Because you can't refine it.
I don't see how it's possible to run out of hydrocarbons on a planet like this.
No. Until we can come up with something better, there's no point killing everybody now by running them out of money.
Yeah, people are struggling at the moment.
Well, people are not just paying at the pump, they're paying at the supermarket, they're paying everywhere.
Yeah.
Because everything has to get
has to be
somewhere
transported.
somehow.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't teleport stuff yet.
Speaking of struggling, do you know anyone who is struggling because of the loss of their job at the refinery?
Thankfully, no. I know there's a lot of people that have had to reassess their lives. I do feel worse for the ones that have only been there a short while because they've probably thought that they've actually, and they're just starting to get their feet on the ground, and then they find out that that's over.
Some of them.
There's been a lot of guys that have sold their houses, are downsized. I'm not too sure exactly
some people
how
have just
many
taken on mortgages.
Gone overseas. I know there's a whole raft of them that are going overseas. Aussie come over and poached. They were hard out. They were happy as to take us.
Who owns most of the refineries over in Australia?
I'm not too sure. I know Ampol own one, and I'm not too sure who the other
Who's
one is.
Ampol?
It's a branch of Chevron, I think.
Do they have much to do with the refinery and gas stations here?
They did. They owned Gull, and I think Zed's in partnership with them so Zed can get out.
So they're one of the major shareholders of the...
They're in the process of buying Zed, I understand.
So
that'll be public knowledge.
So they'd be one of the major shareholders of Channel Infrastructure now?
Well, I think it's only 13%.
Yeah.
Zed.
Does this nation need a refinery? And what was special about the one we have? I say have because there is still very expensive equipment that is vital to the refining process.
Ask it again. It was long.
Why does this nation need a refinery?
Well, because at the moment we're at the mercy of, I don't know who else is actually sending us our finished products. And I understand one of the ones that was actually sending our finished products had a wee upset, had a fire. So if we were going to get it from 4, we're now getting it from 3. And it's a serious piece of channel that they're going through, like down through Indonesia and that. It wouldn't take much turmoil to shut that all down.
Also
crude, we were getting it from all over the world.
Also those lithium-ion battery cars, they go up pretty fast, don't they? They're not too safe on those shipping containers coming over.
Yeah, but I'm not putting electric cars in my tank.
You got an electric car in the garage?
No.
Yeah,
it starts electrically, but that's about it. I wouldn't have an electric car in my garage.
So what started the loss of our refining capabilities? Can we call it undermining of our refining capabilities, considering the exponential increase of the refining margins internationally and the killing of those overseas refineries are making, the killing that the overseas refineries are making at the moment?
Exponential refining margins, the refining margin is all we used to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't own the crude.
Yeah.
All we did was get paid to process it. The refining margins now would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because
so this refinery, if it was still refining, it would be,
it'd be
doing pretty well.
Yeah.
So
we could pay all those.
Channel
We
Infrastructure,
could pay all those office workers then.
Channel Infrastructure was claiming that they weren't making any money and they couldn't foresee.
Yeah, without looking into the books, I couldn't really understand it. The worst thing was that COVID helped the argument, and I think that was the nail in the coffin for them to be able to do what they did.
Convenient help to the argument.
It was awesome. Yeah, perfect timing. It, like you say, the refinery structurally is still there. It would still take a lot to get it back to going again, and repair whatever they've done that I don't know about.
I'm just going to put an article up on the camera here. You won't be able to see it, Craig. And this is an article in the Herald lately about petrol prices. International diesel shortage, big issue for Kiwi motorists. What thought comes to mind when you hear that?
Someone else is paying more for their diesel than we are. So we're going to have to pay more to get it.
We've also had some concerns in the news about a massive shortage in diesel oil. And people were actually stocking up on diesel oil.
Heating
we had our neighbour go and buy a whole drum of it.
That's not a bad idea. Get it now while it's only $3 a litre instead of $5.
Yeah. You reckon it's going to go up that much?
And if they do run out, then at least you've got a little bit, but keep it to yourself. I wouldn't go telling everyone that your neighbour's got some.
Do you reckon diesel's going to get up to $5?
I wouldn't surprise me in the slightest, the way things are going. They've still got 25 cents of government and they want their tax back. They're going to want to put that 25 cents back on.
Do you reckon?
Then we were $3.75 almost, aren't we? What are we now, $3.30?
Oh, it's not far off petrol prices. I don't know why people were still paying for their road user charges.
Oh, I'm sure we're paying enough for the road user charges now.
Well, we're going to have an educational campaign that's going to help people get out of those sort of things. Now, we're going to move on to the bitumen plant. The bitumen plant, through my research, was of particular interest to me. The bitumen plant closed over 18 months ago, and I heard from a few birdies that this refinery produced fantastic bitumen. Now, we're dependent on imported bitumen that appears to be 3 times the price, and incidents like Transmission Gully would suggest that it's not up to spec. What's your thoughts on that? And do we need a bitumen plant in order to bring our disastrous roads up to scratch?
Well, if they're meant to be bringing in the bitumen, shouldn't it be of good quality? And that would be a question I would ask. If they're saying that they can bring in the bitumen, you can shut this plant down, then who slipped up? The reason the bitumen plant was actually shut down, well, I'm not going to go into the detail of why I think the bitumen plant was shut down, but the reason that they shut the plant down was to simplify the refinery so that hopefully they could run what was left.
Don't you aim for scale?
We shut down one whole crude unit and the bitumen plant.
But if you were trying to run a profitable business, wouldn't you be aiming for diversity of products created and scalability of products created?
You would think that you would want to use it all, yeah. I would be.
Do you, are you happy with the state of our roads?
No. I think the government should be giving out 4-wheel drive magazines with registration so that at least we'd be able to negotiate the potholes. We'd have some instructions on how to negotiate rough terrain in our vehicles.
See, I actually live on a off the beaten track, and I've actually developed some skills in dodging potholes because it's a paper road, so we're actually responsible for fixing ourselves. And with all these issues that we have to fight against and try and find remedies for, fixing our paper road has fallen by the wayside. So I don't actually notice much of the difference on the main roads because I have to deal with paper roads, but I imagine most people are starting to think that our regular roads are paper roads.
I was going to say, you probably have to remind yourself when you pulled onto the main road so you actually recognise the difference between the paper road and the main road.
There's a little bit of tar seal on there, but
and a white line
there's,
maybe.
there's some places on the way to Hikerangi where the whole car, and it's four-wheel drive, goes woof.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a shame owning a nice car in New Zealand.
Speaking of the bitumen plant, I had some information, not through you. An individual reached out to me through my videos, and he sent me a whole raft of information. We're probably not going to go through this in this interview, but I'm hoping that after people have seen this interview that they're going to reach out and provide more information, because I don't think Craig should be the only one that's brave enough to have a chat about this. So this information was sent through to me about an Andrew Brewer, who came to the conclusion that our bitumen plant was not financially viable, and apparently he was one of the individuals who helped close the bitumen plant. Was that plant a money maker, and why was it shut down?
It was a business decision, I understand, to shut that down. That was part of the simplification. It was to make the refinery a little bit smaller so that hopefully they could manage it.
Yeah, but wasn't that bitumen plant money for jam?
It should have been money for jam.
I mean, it's a
Maybe.
waste byproduct.
Yeah.
We create a great bitumen. It would have been something where you get all of the money in
Yeah.
for. That's
My understanding is we got paid to use it because it was a waste product, and then we sold it. So win-win.
so. What was the problem? Why did they shut it down?
It had to be issues with either the tankage not up to standard, or they wanted someone else to pay for something. They wanted someone else to pay for fixing their plant.
But
And
that
then
doesn't.
decided- I know it doesn't make sense to me.
It
either.
doesn't make any sense to me, and it's several reasons. I know this isn't your fault, but we had a lockdown. We had several lockdowns. These would have been the perfect times to fix the road. We could have been refining fuel, storing it, and using the off-product bitumen to fix all the roads without having to have the hassle of all these cars driving around all the time. That wasn't done. Instead, before the lockdowns, the bitumen plant was shut down.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I couldn't understand why they weren't out there actually doing the roads while everyone was tucked away at home. But
So this
maybe-
is probably something we're going to have to ask Andrew Brewer.
Yeah, I don't think you'll find him.
Where is he?
He's in Australia.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah.
What will you do now that your vast array of skills can't be used to run a high-spec refinery?
I'm doing nothing at the moment. Rethinking. Chances are I'll either go overseas and take everything and disappear, or I'll find something else to do.
It's sad, mate. I've really enjoyed becoming one of your friends.
Yeah, I've enjoyed becoming your friend too, Brad.
Is it too late to reinstate the refinery? And if we can, will our very experienced operators, such as yourself, come back to bring it back to life so we can hope to enjoy lower fuel prices?
Anything can happen. Back in the 80s, I started with a big sand pit, and a refinery turned up. Just depends on how far along they've gone as to how much more money you have to spend on it. It seems like they've got plenty, because I see that on the shares they've just released some unsecured bonds for $200 million for cash. So they've got $200 million worth of cash sitting there.
Do you reckon the refinery is worth it for that?
I think New Zealand needs it.
Now, my interest in this comes from my research into things that many people won't feel is connected to the refinery issue. However, if we look at many things, we might be interested to learn a little bit about this. So I'm going to encourage anybody who's been interested in this interview to read a couple of books. Stealth War by Brigadier General Robert Spalding and Sun Tzu, The Art of War. There are many ways to wage war on a nation, whether it is a nation state or a corporate state. That's of no consequence. Through economic ways, that's a way to wage war. If you're sitting at home watching this interview and you think this makes no sense whatsoever and you want to find out why this is happening and what makes more sense as to what might be influencing this, because to us it doesn't seem like this is a sound economic decision for New Zealanders or businesses for that matter that operate in this country. But the closure of our refinery and our ability to make our own things may benefit other nations or other corporate states that are competing against us. And so if you're an individual that doesn't think that war can be waged outside of physical war, I encourage you to read these two books. And Craig at the Diggin at Marsden and everyone out there who wants to help save our refinery, we're going to do our best to do so. Thank you, mate.